Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. My name is Phoenix. I would like to take a brief moment and acknowledge the elite members of the channel. Thank you so much for your continuous and dedicated support. I truly and deeply appreciate it. Without further ado, it is now time to go back to ashes. For once we arise from the ashes, we are a bigger, brighter, stronger, and a happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack, or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Chilling Ghost Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. After the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. The air in my apartment was thick, heavy with a malice I couldn't yet name. It was 2015, and I was in the kitchen with my girlfriend, chopping vegetables for dinner, the rhythm of the knife a false comfort. Spotify played softly from the bedroom, an indie playlist to keep the evening light. Then, the music stopped. Silent, so abrupt it felt like a presence. I assumed a Wi-Fi glitch and walked to the bedroom, the floorboards creaking too loudly underfoot. The playlist was still running, but the speaker's volume knob was at 0. A physical knob, not a digital slider. My stomach twisted, a cold prickle climbing up my spine. I lived alone, just us two in the apartment. No one else could have touched it. I turned the knob, spilling music out again, and returned to the kitchen, brushing off the unease. But within 2 minutes, the silence returned. Heavy, deliberate. This time the knob was at 1, a faint murmur of music taunting me. My girlfriend's eyes met mine, questioning, sensing the wrongness I couldn't voice. I cranked the volume up again, louder, as if sound could drown out the dread creeping in. The apartment felt alive, the shadows in the corner too sharp, the light dimmer than it should have been. A thud came from the stereo next to my bedroom, sharp and intentional. My pulse spiked. It wasn't a creak or a pipe. It was something. I asked my girlfriend if she had heard it. She hadn't, but her fingers tightened on the counter. It was clear, I said, my voice betraying me. From the studio. We crept around, the air growing colder, the door ajar when I swore I'd closed it. Inside, books and papers littered the floor, flung as if in anger. No windows, no breeze. We picked them up, turned off the light, and left. The click of the switch sounding like a warning. In the kitchen, another crash, louder and undeniable. She heard it too, her breath catching, her eyes wide. "Something's happening," I whispered, fear coiling in my gut. She, devout and steady, told me not to worry, but her voice trembled. We returned to the studio. The light was on, glaring, and more objects were scattered. Pens, a mug, a frame, strewn like a tantrum's aftermath. I shouted, "I'm leaving the light on," as if words could tame whatever listened. We searched, found nothing, and left, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Before we reached the kitchen, more noises, pacing, deliberate, just out of sight. Fear gripped me. Was it a thief? A sadist toying with us? We ran to the studio. The light was off, the room dark, but the old TV was on, static hissing like whispered threats. My girlfriend's grip on my hand was bruising. "This isn't normal," I said, my voice shaking. She suggested prayer, her faith a desperate anchor. In the kitchen, we prayed, her words a fragile barrier against the growing dread. Silence fell, too sudden. I stepped toward the hallway and froze. There, just outside the kitchen, stood the inflatable punching toy from the studio, grinning upright, impossible. My blood froze. It hadn't been there. It couldn't have been. "Don't come out," I told her. But she looked and screamed, the sound raw. I turned to calm her, my own fear choking me. The doorbell rang, piercing. I answered the intercom. Nothing but static. It rang again. Nothing. The lights flickered and then blazed, blinding. "We're leaving," I said, pulling her towards the door. The apartment pulsed with malice, the air thick with unseen eyes. Outside, the streets was empty, the world holding its breath. We ran to my cousin's, hands shaking, and told her everything. She believed us, her face grim, and gave us holy water. "Go back," she said. "This isn't normal." When we returned, the apartment was chaos. Music screaming, every light blazing. The toy stood closer to the door, as if it had moved. The cousin splashed holy water, frantic, and I checked the laptop. Spotify was open, but the playlist wasn't mine. Regon was scrawled across the screen, a genre I loathed, looping mockingly. I wasn't a believer, not until that night. We threw out the toy, moved out soon after. The holy water seemed to silence the house. My girlfriend, now my wife, and I still feel that night's weight. Something was there, watching, playing. And the twist? The security footage showed the toy moving, sliding across the floor, inch by inch, in the dark. Behind it, a shadow, humanoid, featureless, stood still, watching us watch it. The air in my apartment felt heavy, like it was holding secrets it didn't want to share. A month ago, my world cracked open when I got the call I'd dreaded for years. My ex-fiancé, my once best friend, had overdosed on fentanyl and slipped into a coma. 5 years had passed since we parted ways, our love suffocated by his addiction. I'd never touched drugs, never would, but he tumbled down that dark path, and no amount of rehab, therapy, or support groups could pull him back. I'd tried. God, I'd tried. Until the lies, the excuses, and the sight of him unraveling became too much. They said if you love someone, you have to let them go. So I did, with an ultimatum: change or lose me. He chose honesty over false promises, admitting he couldn't change. And we ended it, not with anger, but with a quiet, aching resignation. That night, after midnight, we drove 100 miles from his parents' place to my college apartment. The street outside was silent, the kind of silence that swallows sound. He stood in my doorway, eyes hollow, holding his cat's carrier. I handed him the ring, told him I'd pack his things for his parents to pick up later. We talked, cuddled briefly, a ghost of what we'd been. "Don't let me get the call you're dead," I said, half jokingly, desperate. He laughed, that sharp, unmistakable laugh, and swore it would never happen. Then he left, taking his cat and a piece of me with him. I never saw him again. His parents came weeks later, their faces etched with grief but no blame. As we loaded his belongings into their truck, his mom thanked me, her voice trembling. "I pray he gets clean," she said. "I want him to live a full life." I nodded, my throat tight. I don't want him back, but I want him happy, maybe friends again someday. We both clung to that fragile hope, but deep down, I felt the shadow of something else, something watching. Time moved on. I met my boyfriend, a man whose kindness anchored me. My ex dated others, sweet women, had a kid with one. But through mutual friends and fleeting social media glimpses, I saw the truth in his gaunt face, his shadowed eyes. He was still using. The texts he sent me over the years were brief, careful. I replied sparingly, afraid of giving him hope, afraid of the pull he still had. Then, on December 16th, the call came. Our friend from Hawaii, where we'd lived for 4 of our 6 years together, was on the line, his voice low. "He overdosed. He's in a coma." I turned off Facebook Messenger notifications weeks earlier, overwhelmed by noise, but later learned his brother and sister-in-law had tried to reach me. I broke, tears choking me as I told our friend to keep me updated. He was flying to the hospital to his family. The next day he texted, "No brain activity. More tests needed." That night at 2:30 a.m., I woke from a dead sleep, a cold pressing against on my chest. I felt him leave, not just his body, but the world. I knew he was gone. The next day, I called mutual friends in Hawaii, spreading the news he was in a coma, unsure if he'd pull through. Mid-conversation with one, a certainty gripped me. The call was coming. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. His brother-in-law. "Is this that call?" I asked, voice shaking. "Yeah," he mumbled. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." We exchanged quiet "I love yous" and hung up. That night at 3:30 a.m., I woke again, heart pounding. His laugh, sharp, unmistakable, echoed from my living room. I lay frozen, tears streaming, knowing he was there, just out of sight. The next day, my boyfriend and I packed for a Christmas trip. His Spotify played, drifting to random songs. Then, 3 of my favorite songs, ones my ex, a musician, used to play, came on in a row. My skin prickled. I restarted the playlist, but the 3rd song lingered, taunting. At the store the next day, buying last-minute gifts, the same 3 songs played over the speakers in the same order. When the 3rd started, I dropped the basket and fled, my pulse hammering. That night, 3:30 a.m. again, I woke to the sensation of someone sitting at the foot of my bed. I didn't look. I didn't need to. We flew to Vegas for a trip, a detour to see the Strip. In a casino, amid the clatter of slot machines, those 3 songs played again, in order. I stood rooted, the crowd blurring, my breast shallow. For a week, things quieted, except for the nightly 3:30 a.m. wake-ups, precise as the clocks tick. No sound, no presence, just the jolt of waking, alone in the dark. His funeral was the day after we'd returned. His family welcomed me, our Hawaii friends too, but the air felt wrong, like the room was holding its breath. I mourned, but something else lingered, a shadow that hadn't belonged. Nights passed, some restful, then the dreams began. In the first two, he appeared, vague and fleeting. I dismissed them as grief. The third was different. We sat in a recording studio, him and two friends, who died years ago. Their faces pale, eyes too bright. He kept pushing me to try hard cider with whiskey, laughing that sharp laugh. I tried shouting to a group outside, but he and the others interrupted, their voices overlapping, insistent. I woke. The drink stuck in my mind. Later, I texted our Hawaii friend, now at my ex's family farm. Did he ever talk about hard cider and whiskey? I asked. No context. He laughed. Yeah, bro. Why? It wasn't a thing when we were together. My stomach twisted. Every night after 3:30 a.m., I'd wake, the air thick, like someone was watching. Last night, the dream was vivid, too real. We were in a Vegas hotel room, the lights dim, the air heavy with cigarette smoke that wasn't there. He asked about my boyfriend, not jealous, but curious, like he needed to know. I told him we were happy, the best thing for each other. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I just want you happy, he said. Can we cuddle? Nothing weird. I agreed, hesitant, laying beside him. He whispered, I'll always love you. Be happy. Change the world. Then I woke, my heart racing. Today, the world shifted. 3 opportunities: academic, professional, life-changing. Landed right in my lap, unbidden. All tied to my research project that could save lives. A LinkedIn message came, asking if my employer was hiring. They were. It felt too perfect, like pieces falling into place by an unseen hand. I should have felt peace, but something gnawed at me, a whisper of wrongness. That night, sorting through old boxes, I found a letter, tucked into a book he'd given me years ago. His handwriting was jagged, hurried, and it read, If I'm gone, don't trust the signs. It's not me. It's something else. It wants you to open the door. My blood ran cold. The songs, the dreams, the 3:30 wake-ups, they weren't him. Something was wearing his face, his laugh, and it was still here, waiting for me to let it in. When I was in high school, a brutal breakup with my girlfriend left me desperate to escape my suffocating hometown. My older sister, living in Oklahoma City, dangled the promise of a job. So, I packed my life into a car and drove over 1,000 miles to a city I had never seen. The move wasn't jarring, but the early mornings were. My new job at a factory near an Air Force base demanded a 5 a.m. start, forcing me to sleep by 9 p.m. and rise at 4 a.m. My commute wound through sparse neighborhoods and endless fields of tall grass. But one sight haunted me daily. An abandoned brick building, isolated and looming like a wound in the landscape. In the pre-dawn gloom, it was a void, darker than the surrounding shadows, swallowing light and reason. By afternoon, sunlight stripped it bare, a crumbling, vandalized husk. Maybe an old school or office. I didn't dwell on it, though. It was just part of the drive, but it was watching me. In Oklahoma City, I met Stefan, a tall, reclusive clerk at a video rental store near my apartment. He was my first friend, a guy with a morbid fascination with death, training to become an embalmer. His dark humor, joking about carrying cadaver teeth in his pocket, set the tone for our friendship. Stefan was obsessed with horror, ghost stories, and Oklahoma's surprisingly dense web of haunted sites. Once or twice a month, he dragged me on a late-night ghost hunt, chasing rumors from customers or sketchy websites. We'd sneak into condemned buildings, flashlights in hand, hunting for spirits or monsters. It was thrilling until the day he showed up at my place, vibrating with excitement. I had just gotten home from work, the Oklahoma humidity clinging to my skin, when Stefan leapt from his car, cigarette dangling, and banged on my window before I could roll it down. "There's a place we gotta check out," he said, eyes wide. "It's just up the road." I groaned, exhausted, but his enthusiasm was infectious. "What is it?" I asked. "I don't know, but I've always wanted to see it," he replied. I changed and we drove off, unusually in broad daylight. My stomach dropped when we pulled up to the abandoned building I passed every day. "I know this place," I said, uneasy. "Me too," Stefan grinned. "And now we've got an excuse." He pointed to a "for sale" sign by the driveway. We could pose as investors, avoiding the unusual nighttime trespassing. We parked, adopting a casual swagger as we scoped the property. No cameras, no cars, just us in the eerie quiet. The building, St. Vincent's Home for Boys, was a massive brick skeleton, its upper windows smashed, its lower ones peering into a basement like black eyes. We crouched to look inside. The basement was a war zone of shattered concrete, charred corners, and splintered furniture, coated in dust and mold. In the center, a single wooden chair set upright, a white helium balloon tied to it, bobbing in the stale air. It was pristine, unnatural, like a taunt. My skin crawled, but Stefan's grin widened. "This place is gonna be weird," he whispered. We found no front door, just a staircase on the east side, leading to a gaping entrance. Its double doors long gone, an ancient tree clawed over the archway, and faded letters spelled out the building's name. Inside, a long hallway stretched into darkness, a small desk at the end buried under inches of multicolored wax from countless melted candles. Scorch marks scarred the surface, and on the wall behind, painted words glared. "We all die." Other phrases, possibly Latin, faded into the gloom. The place reeked of decay and something worse, intent. We wandered through identical rooms like cells in a rotting hive, filled with dated clothes, briefcases, and threats scrawled on the walls. In one room, I pried open a sealed desk drawer to find 70-year-old medical records, names, social security numbers, lives forgotten in the dust. The basement stairs were steep, crumbling concrete plunging into the blackness. Halfway down, we found pieces of a rubber doll, its limbs torn apart. The basement was a graveyard of them. Thousands, some intact with maniacal faces painted on. Others hacked up, splattered with red paint that looked too much like blood. Stefan and I exchanged looks, half thrilled, half sickened. Then a metallic clang echoed, like a door slamming shut. We froze, scanning for the source, but found only warped desks and a sealed safe, too heavy to move. The sound didn't fit. I found a bathroom, its checkered tiles and rusted medicine cabinets, like a 1950s nightmare. I swung a cabinet door, recreating the clang perfectly. Mystery solved, I told Stefan, but his wide eyes were fixed on the chair and balloon, surrounded by a ring of candle stubs. He was obsessed, muttering about rituals. We explored further, finding more rooms, more relies of madness, crayons arranged in spirals, walls screaming with painted curses. Then we heard it. A man's cough. Not a cough, but a guttural choke rising from the walls themselves. It grew louder, gasping, gurgling, until we bolted, hearts pounding up the stairs. As we climbed, a deafening metallic roar shook the building, like every cabinet was slamming at once. I swear I heard a split-second laugh, sharp and cruel. But Stefan, ahead of me, didn't. We burst into the sunlight, the banging fading behind us. Upstairs, nothing had changed. No cops, no owners, just the oppressive quiet. We poked around a bit more, snapped photos, and fled to my place. Back home, we dug into the history of St. Vincent's Home for Boys. It wasn't a school. It was a mental asylum, opened in the 1940s by the Brothers of Mercy, a Catholic group. Allegations of abuse, physical, mental, sexual, piled up, followed by whispers of murder. A nurse confessed to suffocating patients to see what it was like. The asylum grew, housing more victims, all male. In the 1980s, a priest named Richard Dolan took over, turning it into a men's rehab clinic called the Main Artery. Dolan, arrested for soliciting sex from men, was found beaten to death in 1988. His murder was unsolved. A ghost hunting team's website confirmed our nightmare. Their EVP recordings captured a deep male voice snarling, "Leave," and "Help." I sat there, tears stinging my eyes, realizing I'd walked through a tomb of torment. Every commute past that building became a gauntlet of dread. It stood there, for sale, a monument to horror I'd driven by daily, blind to its evil. Last week, I found a Polaroid in my car, slipped under the seat. It showed me standing by that basement stair, the balloon floating above. But I was alone in the photo. Stefan was gone. Scrawled on the back in unfamiliar handwriting, "You sat in my chair." My name is Matt, and I live just outside Birmingham, UK, in a council estate, a grim cluster of government-subsidized houses that feel like they're rotting under the weight of their own history. My home, a modest two-bedroom built in the 1940s or 50s, was unremarkable for the first 2 years. No eerie vibes, no creeping dread. Just a house with spacious gardens, a safe haven for me, my partner, and our young daughter. But in the summer of 2020, during the suffocating grip of the COVID pandemic, The house woke up. What unfolded over the next few months still claws at my nerves. A series of events that make my skin crawl when I think of them. It started one night in July or August, late, when the world outside was hushed. My partner and I were in the bed, the darkness thick, when a knocking began. It wasn't from the front door or the windows. It came from the other side of our bedroom wall. Each tap was deliberate, human, with pauses that felt like it was waiting for us to respond. But that wall bordered nothing. Beyond it was a 20-foot drop to the ground. Whatever was knocking would have to be suspended in midair, defying reason. The sound persisted, a rhythmic taunt, neither loud nor aggressive, but heavy with intent. We lay there, hearts pounding, trying to rationalize it. Pipes? Maybe, or the house settling. But the dread in my gut knows better. We didn't sleep easily that night. And though it never happened again, it was the first crack in the house's facade. A few weeks later, at around 11 p.m. on a quiet weeknight, our Ring doorbell chimed, snapping us out of our calm. Its motion sensor is set to trigger only when someone's well up our long driveway, not for passing wildlife. I bolted to the window, expecting trouble. Council estates attract all sorts at night, but the path was empty. The front light was on, like tripped by a fox, but before I could say so, a deafening bang shook our bedroom door. It was as if a fist had slammed into the center, the frame rattling with a force I felt in my chest. My partner let out a nervous laugh, her voice trembling when I asked why. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's just shock." I flung the door open, expecting something, anything, but the hallway yawned back. Empty. Our daughter, 3 or 4, slept soundly in her cot. Her cat sat calmly, staring at me with unnerving indifference. The Ring footage showed nothing, but the alert on my phone didn't say motion detected. It read, "Someone is at your front door." The specificity, paired with that bone-rattling bang, sank into me like a blade. The next incident came one evening while my partner was out for a driving lesson. It was 5 p.m., the sky still bright, the house bathed in a false sense of normalcy. I was downstairs chatting on Discord when I headed upstairs to the bathroom. Halfway down the stairs, I froze. A torrent of water roared from the kitchen. My first thought was a burst pipe, but when I reached the hallway and peered in, my stomach lurched. Both sink taps were wrenched fully open, water gushing at full blast, pulling on the counter. My cat sat on the floor, staring at me, unperturbed. My daughter was asleep upstairs, the baby monitor silent. In a panic, I video called my mom, who gasped when she saw the tapes. "That's not right," she whispered, her voice tight. I shut off the water, my hands shaking, waiting for my partner to return. We blamed water pressure, but it was a lie we told ourselves. It never happened before, and it hadn't since. The disturbances grew bolder. One evening, I was at my nan's, 10 minutes away, sipping tea in her cozy little room, when my partner called, her voice cracking. She'd been washing dishes when the baby monitor fritzed, its screen flickering with static. Then a massive bang hit the front door, so violent, it woke our daughter, who screamed from her cot. It sounded like something heavy had been hurled against the wood. I raced home, but the CCTV showed nothing. No movement, no trigger on the Ring. The timing, the force, the way our daughter's eyes synced with the bang. It felt like the house was toying with us, feeding on our fear. The knocks followed my partner, especially when she was alone. Soft but delicate. They'd rap on the bathroom door, stopping when she called out. I never heard them myself, but the baby monitor haunted me when she worked night shifts at the hospital. Its screen would glitch, warping into useless static, sometimes so bad I had to turn it off, praying it would reset. The house felt alive, its atmosphere thick with a tension that fueled our arguments, fraying our nerves. Every bump downstairs, every creak amplified our paranoia. The worst came at 3 a.m. one night as I watched Netflix in bed, unable to sleep. I glanced at the baby monitor to check on my daughter, and my breath caught. A white mist drifted across the screen, coalescing into a human silhouette. Arms, legs, a head, paused as if peering in, then retreated, only to repeat the cycle. It wasn't a shadow or a trick of light. It was deliberate, almost ritualistic. Our garden backs onto other gardens with no roads for headlights to cast reflections. There was no explanation. Terrified, I shook my partner awake, too scared to speak. I typed on my phone, "There's someone in her room. We need to get her and leave." She groaned, demanding answers, but when she saw the monitor, her face went slack. We watched, frozen, as the figure looped its haunting routine. Then, defying my cowardice, she leapt from bed and charged into our daughter's room. I grabbed a baseball bat, useless but heavy in my hands, and followed. The room was still, our daughter fast asleep. No trace of anything amiss. No cold spots, no menace, just a normal nursery. Back in our bedroom, the silhouette on the monitor was fading, growing translucent until it vanished. I wanted to flee to my mother's, but my partner refused. "This is our home," she said, her voice firm but thin. I don't know how we slept that night. It never happened again, but the memory is a scar. Desperate, I contacted the vicar of our local church. He listened gravely, suggesting a poltergeist, a spirit that feeds on emotional energy, possibly from our daughter, who was 4, and navigating feelings that she couldn't express. He mentioned the previous occupants, an elderly woman who died in the house, and theorized her spirit might linger, needing help to move on. He offered prayers and a blessing, giving me words to recite in my daughter's room nightly. My partner hesitated, fearing it might worsen things, but after the vicar's guidance, the activity stopped, abruptly, like a held breath released. A few odd moments lingered, but nothing like before. Other incidents, less certain, gnaw at me. One night, something kicked our bed so hard the frame shifted, sending my partner into a panic. I checked on our daughter, finding her cot drenched from a spilled drink, her clothes soaked. Was it a warning, saving her from harm? Another time in the bathroom, a cloying perfume, old floral like an elderly woman's, choked the air. I called my grandma, terrified. It was a sight. But she was fine. Our cat, always present, never reacted to these disturbances. Her calm, a stark contrast to the chaos. Then there were the Sundays. Before the worst of it, I was bedridden with a virus near my birthday. My partner went to the supermarket, only to return quickly. it was closed. But what shook her was a carving fork at the bottom of our garden path, pointing at our door like an accusation. It wasn't there when she left, so we called the police, who told us to bin it. The next Sunday was quiet, but the one after, as I reversed into the driveway, a glint caught my eye. In the hedge, and eye level, was a carving knife from the same set, positioned to catch my gaze. It felt like a message, a threat. We installed CCTV, suspecting a human culprit, but caught nothing. The deliberate placement, always on Sundays, our traditional roast day, felt like a ritual we couldn't decode. The final incident broke me. My partner was on a night shift, our daughter at my mom's. Alone, I woke at 5 a.m. to a mechanical whir from our daughter's room. A voice, tiny and wrong, said, "Hello, friend," followed by a giggling, honey." It was a 30-year-old Winnie the Pooh bear, a childhood relic my mom gave us, perched on my daughter's wardrobe. To make it speak, you had to press its nose hard. No one was there. The phrase repeated, relentless, until I fled to my nan's, heart hammering. Later, I retrieved the bear, and at her house, it went off again, unprompted. Now it sits there silent, and I'll never touch it again. I tracked down the grandson of the elderly woman who lived there before us. He said his grandparents, long gone residents, never reported anything strange. He promised to ask his mother for more, but never followed up. The house is quiet now, but I can't shake the feeling it's waiting. Last night, I found a photo under my daughter's cot. One I didn't take. It showed her sleeping, a white mist curling around her, and my face, my own face, staring down from the mist. On the back in the handwriting, "I've always been here." I don't know about you all, but that story was actually a favorite of mine. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Back to our story, shall we? The air in Odessa, Texas, always carried a faint metallic tang, like the ghost of oil rigs long abandoned. It clung to my skin as I drove the 26 miles between Midland and the nursing home, a routine etched into my bones as a hospice nurse. My patients, Hilda and her son Claude, were tethered to me by the cruel coincidence of their simultaneous decline. Mother and son, dying in tandem, separated by miles in the thin veil of their fading lives. Hilda, a frail wisp of a woman, resided in Odessa nursing home, her mind unraveling other Alzheimer's. Claude, wasting away in Midland, was cared for by his wife, Joni, who bore the weight of their dual demise with a stoicism that even unnerved me. There was something about Joni's calm, her unwavering control, that felt wrong, like she knew something I didn't. I expected Claude to go first. His eyes, sunken and glassy, held the look of a man already half gone. He shuffled a few steps before collapsing, his breath shallow, his confusion a fog that swallowed his words. 2 weeks, I thought, maybe 3. Hilda was different. At 102, she was a fragile relic, bed-bound and wasting, but her spirit flickering with a strange, stubborn light. She'd stopped eating much, her stories looping like a broken record, tales of her youth spilling out in disjointed fragments. Yet her confusion was oddly charming. Her smile, a fleeting warmth in the sterile chill of the nursing home. She'd say things, wild, impossible things, like planning to play baseball at the park, as if her brittle bones could carry her anymore. I thought she'd linger for months, maybe longer, outliving her son in a slow, inevitable fate. That Friday, the sky hung low, bruised with clouds that seemed to press down on the world. I invited Claude first, his Midland home heavy with the scent of antiseptic and something sour, like decay just out of sight. He lay in bed, murmuring nonsense, his hands twitching as if reaching for something unseen. Joni hovered nearby, her eyes sharp, watching me check his vitals. "He's fine," she said, her voice flat, almost rehearsed. I nodded, adjusting his pain meds, and told her I'd see Hilda next. Joni's lips twitched. A smile, maybe, or something else. "Give her my love," she said, and the words felt like a warning. The nursing home in Odessa was a labyrinth of fluorescent lights and hushed voices. The kind of place where time seemed to stagnate. The staff greeted me with their usual reports. Hilda was fine, maybe even brighter today, they said, though their smiles didn't reach their eyes. I was running late, my schedule a noose tightening around my day. So I hurried to Hilda's room. The air inside was thick and oppressive, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Hilda sat propped up in bed, her eyes unnaturally bright, fixed on something beyond me. "Hi, I'm Hilda," she chirped, her voice too cheerful for the shadowed room. "Hi, Hilda. I am your nurse," I said, forcing a smile. "Just checking on you." "I'm good, dear," she said, her gaze drifting to the window where the clouds seemed to pulse. "I had pancakes and sausage today. So good." Her words were light, but there was a weight to them, like she was reciting lines from a script she didn't understand. "No pain today?" I asked, my stethoscope cold against her fragile skin. "Never have pain," she said, her smile widening, showing too many teeth. "Who are you again?" "Your nurse," I repeated. Unease prickled my spine. Her vitals were steady. Too steady. Almost for someone so close to the edge. I glanced at the clock. Noon. I was behind schedule. "Hilda, I saw Claude and Joni this morning. They're doing okay. I'll be back next week." Her eyes snapped to mine, sharp and piercing. No trace of confusion. "My son?" she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The one on 145th Street? He's meeting me at the gate today at 2. He's taking me home." I froze. Claude was in Midland, bedridden, and there was no 145th Street in Odessa or Midland. The nearest numbered street didn't even come close. I chalked it up to her Alzheimer's, a delusion born of her fractured mind. But the way she said it, her certainty, her calm, made my skin crawl. "Okay, Hilda," I said, my voice tight. "I'll see you next week." "You won't," she replied, her face fading into something unreadable. "I won't be here." I gathered my things, the weight of her words pressing against me like a cold hand. The nursing staff waved me off, oblivious to the chill that followed me out the door. I drove back to Midland, the road stretching endlessly under the bruised sky, trying to shake the feeling that something was wrong. Terribly wrong. At 2:15, my phone buzzed with a text from the nursing home. "Call us. Urgent." My stomach dropped. I pulled over, my hands trembling as I dialed. Nurse Annie's voice crackled through, strained and thin. "It's Hilda," she said. "She's gone. We checked on her 30 minutes ago, and she was fine, smiling even. Then we went back and she was just dead." The world tilted. I'd seen death countless times, learned to read its approach in the slowing pulse, the shallow breath. Hilda wasn't there yet, not even close. She was supposed to have months, not hours. "I'm coming back," I said, my voice hollow. I called Joni next, bracing for her grief. She answered, calm as ever, and when I told her Hilda had passed, she sighed, a sound too measured, too composed. "I'm not surprised," she said. "She was 102. I told her I'd meet her at the nursing home to pronounce Hilda's death. "Claude's fine," she added, unprompted. "We were just visiting. I haven't told him yet." Back at the nursing home, the air was heavier, the lights dimmer, as if the building itself mourned. Hilda lay in her bed, her face serene, her hands folded neatly across her chest. Too neatly. I checked her vitals, confirming what I already knew. Joni arrived soon after, her expression unreadable. We exchanged quiet words, hungs that felt perfunctory. As we stepped into the hall, I couldn't shake Hilda's last words. "Joni," I said. It was strange. Hilda said she was meeting her son at the gate at 2. That's almost exactly when she died. She mentioned 145th Street, but that doesn't exist here, does it? Just her confusion, I guess. Joni's face didn't change, but her eyes gleamed, sharp and knowing. "No," she said softly. "She wasn't confused. She meant her other son, Claude's brother. He lived on 145th Street in Lubbock. He died 5 years ago." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Sounds like he came for her today, at the gate, at 2. The world stopped. My breath caught, a cold sweat breaking across my skin. I wanted to ask more, but Joni turned away, her silhouette swallowed by the dim hallway. Claude died 2 weeks earlier. His passing quite unexpected. Joni followed years later, her death unremarkable. But I couldn't stop thinking about Hilda's words. That gate, that impossible street. Then, one night, sorting through old patient files, I found it. A note in Hilda's chart, written in a trembling hand I didn't recognize. It listed her children, Claude and another son, dead 5 years prior. But the address wasn't in Lubbock. It was in Odessa, on a street that didn't exist. And at the bottom, in the same shaky script, were words that turned my blood to ice. "She's waiting at the gate. Don't let her in." I live alone in a small apartment that feels like it's biding its time, waiting to devour me. The air hums with something malevolent, a presence that watches from corners and slithers through the walls. A paranormal investigation team came 3 times, their sage and prayers briefly quieting the chaos, but just before Christmas, the apartment woke with a vengeance. Doors slammed open in the dead of night. Footsteps thundered through the empty rooms. and faucets roared to life unprovoked. My dog, normally a gentle giant, would snarl at unseen intruders or yelp as if struck, while my kitten hissed at shadows that moved when nothing should. The light flickered, mocking my attempts to stay calm, and sometimes I'd feel a cold, deliberate touch like fingers brushing my skin with intent. One Saturday, around 1:30 a.m., I was in the bathroom when the jingle bells on my Christmas-decorated front door went berserk, as if someone had hurtled it open. I froze, heart pounding, waiting for the sound of it slamming shut. But there was only silence. The door was locked, untouched. My pets, usually inseparable and loving, were snarling like they'd seen a predator. I'm small, barely 5'1" and 110 pounds, but had grabbed my pocket taser and stormed out, trying to look braver than I felt. What I saw stopped me cold. A heavy tray on my coffee table was on the floor, its contents scattered. Every cabinet, drawer, and table were flung open as if the apartment had been ransacked by something furious. The bar stools by the counter stood still as I passed, but when I checked the locked door, a guttural grunt rasped in my ear, so close it felt like breath on my neck. I spun, taser sparking, but nothing was there. Behind me, my kitten hissed, and the bar stools began to spin, one clockwise and the other counterclockwise, creaking with unnatural precision. I called my boyfriend, voice shaking, but he was asleep at his place, miles away, with no key to my apartment. This morning, things escalated. I worked nights, so I was showering in the early hours, my kitten splashing in the water, a weird habit of his, while my dog curled up on the bath mat. As I reached for the soap, a shadow loomed through the shower curtain, and an arm, pale, sinewy, wrong, pushed through, reaching for me. I slapped it, panic overriding reason, and the curtain ripped free, hooks clattering to the floor. My dog growled and bolted, and I followed, naked and dripping, forgetting my towel. In the living room, the apartment came alive. The bar stools wobbled, the leashes by the door swayed like pendulums, and my Polaroid camera spun on the coffee table. Then, silence, until the pet food container in the kitchen flipped, spilling kibble, and every faucet in the apartment roared to life. I blamed my kitten at first. He's learned to nudge faucets on to play in the water. But then I felt him, damp and trembling, licking water from my legs. He wasn't near the faucets. A gut-wrenching dread swallowed me, worse than any fear I'd ever known. I scrambled into clothes, yanking leggings over my wet skin. As I dressed, a few strands of my thick hair lifted, held aloft by an invisible hand, as if something was inspecting me. I screamed, grabbed my pets, my massive dog and tiny kitten, and ran outside. Behind me, a low growl rumbled through the closing door. I sat in my car for an hour and a half, shaking before daring to return. When I did, the apartment was frigid, the air thick with malice. I left again to run an errand, locking my dog in his kennel with both latches secure. When I came back an hour later, he bounded toward me, collar off, tail wagging. The cat bed and blanket from atop the kennel were strewn across the floor, but the kennel door was still locked. My dog, a muscular beast, had escaped before, but never like this. The apartment felt like a predator, toying with me, waiting for me to break. I've tried everything. Prayer, sage, the paranormal team's rituals. but the apartment laughs at my efforts. It's alive, and it wants me to know it. But the worst part came last night. I found a picture tucked under my pillow, one I didn't take. It showed me, sleeping, my face pale and still, with a shadow looming over me, its edges blurring into the shape of my own silhouette. Written on the back in my handwriting were the words, "You are not alone. You never were." And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true, chilling ghost stories. I would like to acknowledge the rest of the membership of the channel and also the new watchers. To the rest of the members, thank you so much for sticking with me, and I appreciate your continuous support more than I can put into words. For the new listeners, thank you so much for peeking in and seeing what Back to Ashes is all about. We would love to have you as part of our family here. And as I always say, I would not have a voice. I would be talking to the void, and there would be no Back to Ashes. Thank you. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you are awake, I hope you've enjoyed these selections. Until next time, please stay vigilant and stay safe. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourself a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.